Syslog is a protocol that's running by default on our routers. And it's a protocol that allows our routers to notify us via notification messages if something has occurred. For example, if an interface goes up or down, we can get a syslog message indicating so. If a routing protocol forms a neighbor adjacency, we get that information as well via a syslog message. However, there's different ways we can collect that information. We can have that information sent to the console port, which it's sent there by default. And we can control the severity level of the messages that will be sent to the console port. By default, all messages, all severity levels are sent. So if you don't want all severity levels sent to the console port, you can change that by typing in logging console and modifying the severity level. The problem with the console port is that the information is only viewable if you are sitting at that console port. If you're not sitting there, you're not going to see those syslog messages. We have the terminal lines. Those are the VTY lines. VTY lines allow us to use Telnet or SSH to remotely manage our router. However, again, just like the console line, you have to be sitting at your laptop, your PC, logged into the device via that terminal line to see those syslog messages. By default, all messages will be logged to the terminal lines. However, they're not viewable by default. So even though they are sent to the VTY lines, can you see them? No, you can't. Why? Because by default, those messages will not be displayed on your terminal window. You have to type in the command terminal monitor in order to see them. So once you log into the device, type in terminal monitor if you want to see these syslog messages. You can change the severity level for the terminal lines by typing in logging monitor and specifying the severity level. But again, we're not going to be sitting there. We don't have time to sit there and stare at our screens all the time. So a better place is the logging buffer. What is a logging buffer? It's RAM. That's what it is, RAM, random access memory. We can modify the size of the buffer in RAM by typing in logging buffered and specifying the size. And we can also modify the severity. So by default, all syslog messages are sent to the buffer as well. But you can control which ones will be sent. The problem with buffer logging is that it is susceptible to power outages. The information in RAM is volatile, meaning that that information will be deleted, removed, cleared out, lost if we lose power to the device, or the device simply gets rebooted due to maintenance. So if we're looking for permanent long-term storage of our syslog messages, we need to consider a syslog server. The syslog server is an external server somewhere within our organization, and our routers are set up to send those syslog messages to the syslog server. So we can set up our logging host command. Logging host is going to allow us to identify who the syslog server is by its IP address or by its host name. And then we can also specify which severity level of syslog messages will be sent. So by typing in logging trap and then the severity level, we can control which syslog messages will be sent to the syslog server. So here's an example of a syslog message right here. How does that break down? Well, you can see up here that we have a sequence number that can be specified. By default, the sequence numbers are not on. But you could have your log messages sequenced so that way there you can have them in a certain order. However, there are timestamps on by default. And I'm a big fan of timestamps. Why? Because timestamps allow me to see exactly when this particular syslog message arrived at, when it was generated. And as a result, we have the ability to go back through our logs and now compare the time of these syslog messages to other issues that were going on during that day. So if a certain interface went down or OSPF adjacencies were flapping, we now have the ability to know exactly when that was occurring And then we can do event correlation. We can find out, what was going on over here? What was going on? Oh, look at that. You see how this lines up perfectly for us? And then when you have all that information, then you can better troubleshoot your environment. You can fix your issues quicker. So timestamps are really, really important. From a security standpoint, from a legal standpoint, timestamps make sense. Why? Because you want to be able to, especially during a security breach, identify when that security breach happened. The facility. The facility is identifying the particular component of the device that is generating the syslog message. So in this case, it was the line protocol that is generating this syslog message. And the syslog message has a severity level of 5. And if we look down here, you'll see the different severity levels. Level 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the names associated with them. Emergencies all the way up to debugging. Notice the descriptions. The 0 level is the worst level. The router is completely unusable. Whereas as you move up, they are slightly less severe until you get to just your informational messages, which are a level 6. And then debug messages have a level of 7. A mnemonic is just a simple little code snippet of information that is identifying what has happened. So the line protocol, up, down. So it either went up or it went down in this particular case. And then if you read the description, it says line protocol on interface fast Ethernet 0/22 changed to up. So timestamps, as we said, are extremely important. And you can modify how the timestamps are displayed by using your service timestamps command. We'll see here that using context-sensitive help is telling us that we can set up timestamps for our log messages. We can set up timestamps specifically for our debug messages. And then if we are looking at logging, we have the ability to specify date time as the output or uptime. Now, out of these two, I prefer the date time information because the date time is going to allow me to see the day it happened, the time it happened at, whereas the uptime is referring to when the syslog was generated since the router started. Well, if the router is experiencing difficulties and it's rebooted 6 or 7 times, now we are in a situation where, okay, is this particular log message, what does it correlate with? Is it with this particular time it rebooted or this one or this one? It's not as easy to keep track of as our date time information. And then when you go to the date time, you'll see that you can specify local time. You can even do milliseconds in your timestamps. You can show the time zone if you want to, the year. So you have a lot of control as to how the timestamps are going to be displayed. When verifying your syslogs, you can type in show logging. It'll let you verify how you are logging to the console, how you are logging to the VTY lines, how you're logging to the buffer. So in this case, we have level of informational, level of warnings, level of debugging. And down below here, you have the ability to verify the syslog server configuration information. So right here, we're logging a level of informational to our syslog server at the IP address 10.1.1.10, and the UDP port for syslog is 514.